Paranormal King Radio Network, bringing you the best paranormal hosts and guests, bringing you the best paranormal shows and features, playing the top musical artists from around the world. Paranormal King Radio Network. With the best paranormal hosts and guests. The best in paranormal shows and features. Playing the best musical artists from around the world. Paranormal King Radio Network. The paranormal will never be the same.
You are listening to Paranormalities and Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal team. Brought to you by the Paranormal King Radio Network and hosted by Frank Lee. Join us for the next hour as we discuss ghosts, spirits, hauntings, and otherworldly phenomena that has yet to be explained in hopes of finding answers. This show is meant to be a resource for those of you who, like us, seek to find answers to the unknown. We hope you find it informative and enjoy the show. And once again, thank you for listening.
Welcome to Paranormalities and Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal team. I'm Frank Lee, and I've got with me today Blaine Rohan. Blaine, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm kicking ass and taking names. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to have you here on the show. So,
It's an honor to be on here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure as always. Well, tell me, how are things going with you here lately?
Oh, dude, it's going awesome, man. I got a week left before I go on vacation, going down to Destin with the wife, spend a week down there for our anniversary, and, just been going to work. I work at a casino as an IT guy, and I've been doing this paranormal thing for the last 30 years. I've been an empath medium for the last 49 years, all my whole life. So that's about it, yep.
Right, I understand you've been in the field quite a while, since a lot of these investigators out here were in diapers.
Yeah, I know, that's the sad part. Yeah, my first investigation was I was stationed in California in the Air Force, and we were sitting around the dorms one day, and I'd watched Helter Skelter, the thing on the Manson murders.
Oh, wow,
And,
okay.
hey, we're this close. Why don't we go see if we can find Sharon Tate's house? Because I know the address. It's 10501 Cielo Drive, and we got, there's 4 of us the first night. We had a Polaroid camera, we had an old cassette recorder, and we had a flashlight. We found the address. The house is no longer there. There's another gentleman that bought both pieces of property. He bought the old Tate house, and he also bought the property next door. And he put his house about 100 feet from where the original house was. But we never actually could get in the yard. Now, we were young kids. I was like 21, 22 years old. And we stayed at it's sort of like in a cul-de-sac. And we were outside the cul-de-sac. We never stepped in the yard. We were very respectful. And a security guard came riding through there and asked us what we're doing. I said, we're trying to see if we can catch a ghost. And the guy's eyes got as big as saucers, and he was like, I get up in 10 minutes. Can I come back? I'm like, yeah. As long as you ain't going to arrest me, I'm happy. Come on back.
Right. I found when you tell people what you're doing in a situation like that, you get one of two reactions. Either they think you need a straitjacket, or they want to be right there with you. There's no in between.
That is very true. Or they'll have questions for you. They'll ask you 500 questions.
Right.
Yeah. So our first investigation, we took a bunch of pictures with the Polaroids. I think we only had like one or two stacks of film, and we took all of them, and didn't get anything on pictures, but on our audio, we got. I asked for C.A.S.P.I.R, who had cut it to the stars at the time, and he was one of the ones the Manson people had murdered. And I asked him, I said, "What do you do? Or what did you do?" I think is what I asked. And he said, "I used to cut hair." And that's what we got on the audio. And we got Sharon Tate saying that I hate Charlie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't know the background of that place. The Tate Mansion, Manson had been there before. It was Terry Melcher's house. He was Doris Day's son. And he was the producer for the Beach Boys. And Dennis Wilson became good friends with Charlie because he provided him with drugs and girls.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlie had actually been to that house before, so that house wasn't chosen at random like the La Bianca house was. But yeah, that was a brutal murder, and I know Sharon for a fact had told one of the girls that was stabbing her, "Please don't kill me. I want to keep my baby."
Right.
And that words of the girl that stabbed her was, "Bitch, you don't matter. I'm going to kill you and your baby."
Wow.
But yeah, that was an interesting first investigation ever, let me tell you.
Absolutely. And, well, I know that there's a house built in the location where the original place was. And I know that the owner of the current place on that location claims that there's quite a bit of activity there.
Yeah, they actually did a Ghost Hunters episode there with my good friend Chris Fleming.
Oh,
First
okay.
time they ever brought out a K2 on an investigation on TV. Matter of fact, my K2 came from Chris. And it was the one he gets used on that episode.
Oh, wow. So what did you encounter when you actually investigated the first time, when you were out there with your Polaroid back years ago?
Well, like I said, we didn't catch any pictures. We caught like 2 EVPs, and the one with C.A.S.P.I.R saying I cut hair was very low, but you could still hear it. If anybody's ever used an old cassette recorder, the quality was not that good on it.
Right. The tape hiss was horrible.
The hiss was just unreal. And, we didn't have the software that we do now to, monitor out all the feedback and all that stuff. And, with 80-style headphones, you could hear it, but, it wasn't the quality we get today. Today, people would call it probably a Class D at best. But you could distinctly hear the voices, and I know it wasn't any of our voices of the 5 of us that were there when the recording came through, because the security guard was one of them. And that's one good thing I'm very good at, is recognizing people's voices that are around me.
Right.
But yeah, that was interesting. That was my first one. And then after that, I got stationed over in Germany, and I did investigations of like castles and. Matter of fact, there was about 4 of us that lived in a villa over there because we were allowed to live off base. And it turned out to be an old SS barracks.
Oh, okay.
We were living at. And we found all kind of stuff in there. We'd hear voices in there at night. And we got one voice that spoke broken English. You could tell it was a German man because of the accent. But he said, "It's in the walls."
Huh.
And I'm like, okay, what the hell's in the walls? And we
Right.
came out pictures one day, a couple months later, and my buddy hit the wall too hard, and part of the wall came off, and inside the wall there was an old Luger, and there was some SS medals in there that were hidden in the wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he wanted us to find that gun, and he wanted us
Well, now
And
that I'm sure that piqued quite a bit of interest when you found those. I'm sure.
oh, definitely. Let me tell you. Yeah, I actually kept that gun for a long time. I actually shipped it home piece by piece. And
Right.
my dad to this day still has the gun.
That is awesome.
Yeah, he keeps it in his gun safe, and I'll get it back from him when he passes. But I thought it'd be a cool gift. I gave it to him for his birthday one year.
Well, now that's a heck of a birthday present. I've got to admit.
Yeah. Well, my dad's a gun enthusiast like I am, so it was a perfect gift for him. It's probably when I didn't have no money back, when I was a young airman. Because you've been military, they didn't
Right.
pay us worth crap when we first got in. So.
Right. You got to do what you got to do. It's
Oh yeah. So I said, yeah, why not? I found it. Might as well give it to pops. But yeah, it worked out pretty good. Dad loves it. Dad's actually went and shot it. I went and shot it with him a few times. He don't like to shoot it much because he's so scared it's gonna, blow up in his face. But it's shot every time we've shot it. So.
so that makes me think of another thing that I was going to ask you about. And have you ever ran into any haunted objects or any objects that had spirit attachments to them?
More times than I want to count. I've had to cleanse so many pieces of antique furniture, paintings. There's a couple of things we've got from investigations. Like one of them was down in Dothan, Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
at the house, and this lady had a mask from New Orleans. It was a voodoo mask.
Oh
Well,
wow.
somebody had put a voodoo curse on the thing. I cleansed it, and I actually sent that, and the other. There was a twin mask that went with it, and those are sitting in John Zaffis' museum up there in Connecticut right now, in his haunted barn.
Right. And I've always wanted to go through that place.
Oh, it's awesome, dude. It's not bad either when you got John Zaffis himself doing the tour for you. So
Oh yeah. No, that would definitely add to it.
yeah, John is so cool. Most people just see the John Zappos on TV. Now, when I did my show, The Haunted Syndicate, we
Mm-hmm.
did a whole 2-hour show with John, and John played a Southern gentleman the whole show until the end of it. People just thought I had some redneck dude from Alabama on the show with us. It was awesome.
Right. Right. So and that's quite a shame because he's done so much work in the paranormal field that
Yep.
a lot of the more recent investigators aren't aware of. They know of the Haunted Collector and the Zaffis Museum, but they don't know of all of the things that he did. They don't know of his investigations back during the 70s and 80s with the Warrens and all of the
Well,
research he's done.
the Warrens were his aunt and uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a good story about John. I know a lot of you guys have seen The Haunting that comes on, it used to come on the Discovery Channel.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think it's on the Destination America channel. They revamped it and they were showing episodes, new ones and old ones.
Right.
Well, the thing in Connecticut, my good friend Carmen Reed, he did the investigation there. And if you guys seen the movie or if you guys seen the episode uh, where John's in the house investigating, and there was a spirit that told John if he didn't leave now that his family would die. And John ran out the room. And he got in his car and he went home to make sure his wife and his kids were okay.
Right. Now that would be the case with the Snedeker family, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. That is them.
Right. I remember that being one of the few occasions where, he actually left an investigation and
Yeah. He said it's the only time in his career of investigating he ever left an investigation. And from having John, we had John and Carmen on a show together, and they talked about it. And John went into a little bit more detail about why he left, because he says it wasn't just one bad spirit that said something to him. He said it was several of them,
hmm
and they were describing how that they were going to hurt his family if he didn't leave, because they didn't want those spirits in that house. Did not want them in there at all. Because it give you a little background on the house. When it was a mortuary,
hmm
the guy that was the mortician experiments on the bodies, and a lot of the spirits didn't like that being done to them.
Absolutely.
So all they could see was people living in the house. They didn't care who it was. They were pissed off.
Right.
And I can't blame them. If somebody, does that to me when I'm dead, I'll probably get pissed off about it too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, John's a good guy. If you guys ever get to meet John, have him do the Southern Gentleman for you.
That would definitely. We'll see if we can get him to do the Southern Gentleman, and I'll do the redneck, and we'll see what we can come up with.
And you're talking to him, you're sounding like you're talking to like somebody that owned a plantation. They talk about the pavilions and cotillions or whatever the hell they used to have. And it's so funny to hear him do it though. Because if you don't know it's John, you're like, God, he's good.
Right. So, well, and I have to ask, in a lot of those cases, this is something that I'm always curious about. Now, I know you started investigating in the 80s. When you first started investigating, what was a typical paranormal investigator's toolbox? What did it consist of?
Well, back then there wasn't, all the toys and gadgets we have now. We had camera. You could either have a Polaroid camera or a film camera. You could have, the cassette recorder, because there was no such thing as a digital recorder back then.
Right.
A flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that's about what you had. And then as it got more and more, there started becoming more toys out there. And being the curious guy I am, we'd try different things to see, something new would come out. We'd hear about it, or you'd read about it, because internet wasn't that prevalent back in the 80s.
Absolutely.
It wasn't even around. You get it out of books. You go to the library and just start trying to find anything you could, and you'd read it.
Mm-hmm.
Now some of the stuff in there was, bullshit. I don't know to be blank, but it was.
Right.
And then it just got more and more, and it seemed like after the TV shows started popping up, there was more and more equipment that got out there. People were making equipment and stuff, to what, the digital recorders that record in 360, and you got ghost boxes and all kinds of stuff. We didn't have when we started. But a lot of mine, being a medium, I just picked up on stuff and hoped to God that they would say something that the recorder would pick up, or we'd catch a picture of something.
Right. I can't believe the difference in equipment just from the time that I started to now. It's unreal. So how much time did you spend in Radio Shack when you first started?
Yeah. And I apologize about the phone call. We had a death in our family, and my cousin was trying to call me to tell me when the funeral arrangements are. I'll call her after we got off the air.
Oh, okay.
But, oh yeah, Radio Shack was a big one. You go to Radio Shack, and I don't know, back in the 80s, though, the Radio Shack was a pretty cool place. You go in there and actually build your own radio.
Right. I remember the racks of the diodes and electrodes and capacitors where they had the swivel shelves that you could go in there and pick out what values that you wanted, and you buy your breadboard, you take it home, you build it, and there you go.
Yeah. Yep, pretty much. And then, it just, like I said, it just got more and more advanced, and I'm sure 10 years from now they'll have stuff that we don't even have now. Because you got so many great inventors out there. Gary Galton comes to mind. The guy that invented the Melmeter. He invented the S.P.I.R.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a whole bunch of stuff. And Gary is an engineer by trade. And if guys and gals don't know Gary's story, his daughter Melissa died in a car crash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gary, being the engineer that he is, he wanted something that he could talk to his daughter with. So he invented the Melmeter. And they invented S.P.I.R after seeing a Radio Shack that we had at Sloss Furnaces.
Right.
He just looked at it and goes, that's just a simple radio. I could do that better. And damn if he did.
Mm-hmm. So and I know that you know Gary personally. I have to ask, how much interest did he have in the paranormal before his daughter passed?
None. Okay, you gotta understand. If you
Mm-hmm.
understand how an engineer's mind thinks, everything to them is logic.
Absolutely.
Everything to them is science. So he had to go against everything that was ingrained in him when his daughter died to do this. So yeah, before his daughter died, he had no paranormal experiences at all. Had no interest in the paranormal. And that, you can ask Gary himself, he'll tell you the same thing. I had none at all. In my mind, ghosts did not exist until
Right.
I heard my daughter come across an audio recording and said, Daddy, I love you. And he knew, him and his wife both knew that that was her voice.
Mm-hmm. Right, because I remember him telling the story of getting that EVP that said, I love you, Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, but that was the one thing that I didn't know was how much interest he had. So that was basically the life-changing event that turned his whole view.
Oh yeah, and now his whole dedication now with his company is to make every device he can to help other people communicate with their loved ones.
So and that's awesome what he does, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his equipment is so useful in the field.
Oh God, yes it is.
I mean, how many paranormal teams do you see now that don't have a K2 meter or a Mel meter at least?
You don't see them unless they have those. Yeah, any paranormal team worth their salt is going to at least have one of those two devices.
Mm-hmm. And then you get into like the SB7 or now the SB11s. There's so
And we've had phenomenal results with the SB7. We've had phenomenal results with the Shack hats. I've got more stuff come through those. And I'll tell you what, when I first saw the first ITC devices, the ones you can communicate live with spirits with, I was very skeptical of them.
right.
I was like, okay, this is just a radio signal. Until the first time I actually heard one and it called my name out. Not once, but 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
3 different voices called my name. Like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. I gotta study a little bit more on this. And it's real funny for me, actually, I got into it. I could not listen to the signal go through at first for more than like 3 or 4 minutes because it would give me a severe headache. It would give me a headache so bad that your head feels like it's going to explode.
Right.
And then I got better and better and better at it. I could listen for longer periods of time. Now I can listen unlimited.
Right. It definitely takes some adjustment. Especially, I don't know if you've encountered this, but like with the PBS 7, it or with the SB7, excuse me, I know when I first got mine, it would give me a headache after about 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I figured it out. It's the waves that are coming through because I am so in tune to spirits anyway. It was amplifying it on me 100% because I didn't know it was my energy or the energy that's around me that was drawing the spirits toward the box. And then once I figured out how it just got better and better and better as I did them, and then we started getting phenomenal results. And one of the things that I always tell people about those is people say, "Oh, it's just radio signals."
Right.
Okay, well, you tell me when a radio signal could drop an F-bomb.
Right.
And I'll tell you why, because FCC will not allow. They'll charge it's a $750,000 fine, and I don't know any radio station that as a business wants to lose 50 grand. Yeah, so the first time I heard one drop an F-bomb, I was like, ooh, we got something new.
Right. That's definitely a good giveaway right there, and especially when it's calling your name. I mean, there's I could see maybe one radio station talking about a Blaine, but I don't think there's one in the headlines making the news on that many channels.
No, Blaine's not a common name.
Right.
And you know, the funny part about it now, I've got so in tune with it, I can actually ask them, say, I can tell you when they're going to say my name. I'll give you a prime example. We were on the USS Salem,
Mm-hmm.
and we were doing, I did a documentary, my good friend Robin Marie, called Ghost of Fire. And we premiered it on the USS Salem. And we were with a group that came to that conference we were at to premiere the movie, the documentary, and I was up in the captain's quarters. And I said, watch this. I'm going to walk out of the room, and it will call my name. And I got a step out of the door, and it went like Blain, 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 about 5,
Wow.
6 times. People in the room just looked back at me with like eyes as big as saucers, mouth dropped. Says, how'd you know that was going to happen? Because they told me they were going to do it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, Kim, our good friend Kim, who did your show last week, got to experience it several times with me.
And how did you feel the first time that you heard your name come through and you knew that they were talking directly to you from this device?
Even to this day, I still get pure excitement out of it. It's still, and as many times as I've heard my name called over a ghost box, over an Ovilus, over a Frank's box, several different ITC devices, I've heard my name called over. And I get excited about it every time. It still thrills me that they would take the time to know what my name is and actually want to speak to me. So, yeah, I get thrilled every time.
Right. I know I've had that same feeling myself, and it seems like every investigation that we go on, I always have something call my name every time we do an EVP session, every time we do a spirit box session, anything. I don't know what it is about me that they like, or if they just like to see my reaction or what, but it's something you never quite get used to. It always kind of catches you off guard. You're like, oh, wait, that's cool.
See, to me now, it's just like every time that's cool. They
Right.
did it again. I take it as a badge of honor.
Right, absolutely.
And I'll give you a funny one where it called my name. Like, we were up in this little covered bridge up in West Virginia. And the weekend before, we had went to Fort Delaware and did an investigation. There was 3 of us that did an investigation. My late friend Sharon, who just passed about a year ago, she was in there with me, and we had a lady named Judy. Well, Judy's not the prettiest lady in the world, but she's the sweetest lady you could ever meet. And there was a spirit there that kept calling her a witch the whole time we were there. And then they were making fun of Sharon because she was getting excited. The spirit would say something to her, and we were doing a ghost box session. And she grabbed the speaker like it was a walkie-talkie, trying to push a button that wasn't there. And the spirit started laughing at her and says, "You're funny. That's no button. That's no walkie-talkie." And we were joking about it the next week on this bridge. And Sharon goes, "How come you never pick on Blaine?" And clear as a bell, since she said that, because Blaine is royalty. And her eyes got as big, she's like, "Geez, they make fun of us, but you're royalty."
It's like, wow, that makes you feel great.
That did, really. And what was even funnier, the next week we did a Paracon over in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend from Connecticut had found this old 70s Burger King doll. And she had made it a little shirt that said Blaine is royalty. And we set it on our table at that Paracon for 3 days. I still got the doll. It's sitting in my closet right now.
Oh, definitely. I would hang on to that.
But yeah, that was so funny. We laughed about that. And I've got some of the funniest EVPs. I've told you this story, but I'll tell your listeners this story. We were over to Old Bryce's hospital. We investigated for about 8 hours over there one night, and there was a building next door to it that used to be an old convalescent home, and they were planning on at the time of rebuilding it and putting it back in service again.
Right, talking about the old Jemison Center.
Yep, that place right there. And we had walked over there, and I was tired, but we had been straight up investigating hard over there at Bryce's. And there was a stack of wood stacked up against this wall. And we all go to sit down on it. And luckily, I had my recorder still going because I'd have missed the best EVP ever. You hear this old man. You hear us go over there and sit. You hear the thing crash. And right before we sit down, you hear this old man go, "It ain't going to hold you, dumbass." Then you hear the wood crash. Then you hear the old man just cackle laughing. I said, "You can't get no better than that."
Right, that is awesome.
And my other favorite EVP, well, actually, this came through a box session. We were up in Waverly, and they had put this couple together with us, this husband and wife. And we were up on the 3rd floor, and I just started the ghost box session, and the lady farts like a man. I mean, she was a big one. And you hear come over the ghost box, "You nasty bitch." And that lady turned about 9 shades of red.
I can imagine that it's bad enough to be called out by everyone in the room, but when a ghost calls you out on something like that, that's like a whole new level.
It just shows me that ghosts do have a sense of humor too.
Right.
But still, one of my favorite EVPs I ever caught. It's a classic EVP. It was up in Gettysburg. We're on this old bridge that they had. It was a bridge there during the Civil War, but they had tore that bridge down, and in the 20s they built another bridge, and it lasted till like 1945, and then they just quit using it. They bypassed around that road, so that bridge wasn't used anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're on that bridge, and I'm asking questions like, "Who all's here?" And I get this EVP of this old black guy saying, "George likes homos."
Oh no!
I'm like, first of all, who the hell is George? And who the hell is That was the funniest thing, going review on that one.
Right.
I'm sitting there listening, and I hear George likes homos. I had to stop, rewind it, and then I called my wife over and said, "Jennifer, come tell me what this thing says." And she comes back in and goes, "He said somebody he likes homos."
Right. That I found in some of our EVPs that we've caught, ghosts are definitely have a sense of humor, and they are definitely sarcastic at times.
Oh yeah.
We had one case that we were reviewing EVPs from not too long ago, that one of the client was telling one of the investigators there a little story about an experience they'd had at another house, where they heard a child in the bedroom, and the child was saying, I'm a ghost, and then disappeared. And they heard this sound coming from underneath the bed. And this investigator, she was telling another investigator on the team about it, and we'd left the EVP recorder going in the room, so you're picking up their conversation, and you hear, and of course we're all from Alabama, got that good southern accent, and JJ, I'm telling on you here if you're listening. So I actually teased her enough about this that I told her I was going to make this her ringtone. Because you hear, she was very self-conscious about it because she was talking about her southern accent, which she doesn't have a very big southern accent, but she thinks she does. One of those kind of deals.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you hear her telling the story, and she gets to the part where she says, the little boy says, "I'm a ghost, I'm a ghost." And you hear this Class A EVP of this man going, "Yeah?" Just right at that moment, it comes through like it's going, "Yeah?" and, and it was just the perfect timing for us to catch that. And aside from that, probably the strangest one we got was, we had one where you hear a little girl say the floor is going to eat you.
Oh, nice.
We have never made sense of that, but it was a Class A, and there was no mistaking what it was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was no way of it misunderstanding it, but it's a little girl saying the floor is going to eat you, and I don't know if this was maybe I don't know if they do some drugs on the other side or what that situation.
I wonder about that sometimes.
But that one was wild. That one I still wonder about.
Yeah, no, one of my other favorites, we were up in Shelby County on this haunted farm we go to, and there's a graveyard up at the top of this hill. Well, a guy that owns the farm, he owns cattle and sheep and goats and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the cattle go up there in that graveyard, and they do their business. And my good friend Allie, I'm gonna tell on her. She's gonna hate me for this one, but this is funny. We're sitting down, and she sat down on the ground, sit right in the cow pie.
Oh no!
And had cow mess all over herself, all up and down the back of her pants. And we're doing a box session up there, and you hear this spirit go, "Cow pie, cow pie." Yeah, Allie's probably gonna kill me for that, but that one was so funny.
So on that, I had to ask, well, what's the scariest thing that you've ran into on an investigation?
That's the weird thing, because nothing's ever scared me. I've had some stuff that pissed me off.
Right.
We were up in Gettysburg doing my buddy's ghost tour up there with his sister Sharon, who was the leader of the group I was in at the time when I lived in Maryland. And my friend from Connecticut was down there with her husband, and we were just walking doing this ghost tour. And we're standing there, and nobody around us at the time was smoking. And we were the only people around in that area. There was nobody that just walked through a few minutes ago, and I had cigar smoke blown right in my face.
Huh.
And everybody smelled it, and then right after cigar smoke, I got hit dead in the nose by a Yankee Dam soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And he hit me so hard, dude, that it actually brought tears to my eyes and my nose bled.
Wow.
And I stepped back and I said, you know what? That's insulting to me, because I've served in the military for over 25 years, and you're going to hit me in the face like a coward? Oh, I was mad. It startled me, but it didn't scare me.
Oh, I can imagine.
It really pissed me off. Now, I'll take that back. The only thing that ever has scared me on an investigation, and this one's sort of funny, we were at Fort Toulouse down here in Wetumpka during the day, and I heard this thing rustling in the woods, and I was like, what the hell? And this, what do you call them? Armadillo came out of the woods. I had never seen one alive before.
Right.
I've always seen them like dead on the side of the road. That's the first time I've ever seen a live one. And it really scared me. It sort of just shocked me. It's like, damn, they actually do live.
Right, because that's like me. I think 90% of the ones I've seen were always upside down on the road.
Yeah, so it sort of shocked me. It didn't really scare me. I've had nothing really scare me. I've had other people scared. I'll give you a funny one. We're doing a Paracon or an event up at Sloss one night, and I had this big football player played linebacker at Auburn. I won't give his name because it's embarrassing enough what he did, but he talked so much smack before we got in there. I ain't scared of nothing. I play football. I blah blah blah. Big, no neck, tree trunk looking son of a bitch.
Right, and usually those are the first ones to take off running.
Oh, he did too. We were in there in 5 minutes, and something grabbed him. I heard the scream A little girl come out of his mouth. Then all I saw was him, ass and elbows, in his car, sideways out the parking lot, and gone.
Right.
That one made me laugh.
Right. There's no way to not laugh at a situation like that. You can't
I laughed
help
so
it.
hard. We made fun. Even the spirits made fun of him that night on Ghostboxing. Somebody called him a big baby. Somebody said big scared baby. Scaredy cat. They were making fun of it. It was hilarious.
Right. Now, on the spirit boxes, have you tried out the Echo Vox yet?
No, but we have discussed this before. I did something very similar to it. My good friend Kevin has this thing called the Book of the Dead. It is basically like a book, a carved out book that you buy at Michael's to fill a shelf with.
Right.
And he ran an echo chamber inside of the box. And that device will actually hold up to 3 devices. We have run 2 SB7s, one forward on AM, one backwards on FM, and with a shack hack at the same time. And we have gotten nothing but great results out of that thing. Very phenomenal. So I've done something similar to the echo chamber.
Right. And how many times do you have people ask you those questions about, well, why can you hear it through that, but you can't hear it with the naked ear, so it must be fake. It must be coming just from the box. How do you respond to those kind of questions?
Well, very simple on that one, because a lot of times when I do a ghost box session, I will go to the AM frequency, and I'll tell you why. Because federal law says AM stations have to reduce their power down from 50,000 watts down to 25,000 watts. And FM stations are allowed to increase theirs.
Right.
And plus, when you get something, dropping F-bombs on you and saying cuss words that, the 7 dirty words, that George Carlin said you can't say on TV or radio, come through there. Yeah, it sort of makes a little difference.
Right. And, well, it's something that I've always told people that, me and you were talking about this just the other night, to the teams that are listening. When me and you both, when we first started, we didn't have the luxury of the digital recorders and the software to analyze it. We just had to rely on our ears. Of course, now you've got this software where you can pull up and you can view the waveforms, and of course you have to spend a little money. You won't hardly find a free version of some audio software to do this. But if you can get a spectrum analyzer and look, you'll notice that almost every EVP that you capture is going to be below the audible range of hearing.
Yep.
And the reason for this, and I know you're familiar as well with it, there's a lot of phenomenal work that, like David Roundtree's done, and some of the others with audio and EVP that explains it, where he had taken, like one particular experiment where he had taken a microphone and put it inside a vacuum.
Yep.
Because, the microphone works by the full or the condenser being the sound waves vibrate that full or that condenser, and it transfers it into the electrical signal, which is then recorded, is what we hear.
Yep.
Well, naturally, inside a vacuum, those aren't going to move. Well, inside that vacuum, they still captured EVPs. And they concluded from that the EVPs weren't actual audible sound waves, that they were spirits manipulating EMF or electromagnetic wave or electromagnetic fields and electromagnetic frequencies that in a way to produce those sounds. And when you look at it on a spectrum analyzer and you see where those EVPs fall when you pick them up on a recording, it makes perfect sense. And that's why you're not hearing them in real time.
Yeah. And that's
is
just like the same theory, too. If you have two recorders right next to each other,
mhm,
one recorder will pick it up and the other one won't hear it at all.
mhm,
We tried
absolutely.
that experiment several times. And we
Mhm.
would get, and I've had, and you know, too, that you can take those frequencies and play them backwards, and there are other EVPs inside that backwards playing.
Absolutely.
And there'll be a different voice than what you heard going forward.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, they're manipulating the electromagnetic waves to do it. And our hearing is set on, I think it's like 20 gigahertz is our hearing range. And below that, and if it goes like below 15, the human ear can't hear it. Now, maybe a dog could hear it or some other
Right.
animals could hear that.
Right.
Like you can't hear a dog whistle, but a dog can. It's almost the same concept. But it's
Mhm.
below our audible range that we can hear, so they go below that.
Right. And that definitely goes into why the animals tend to react more sensitively than humans do.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Exactly.
their perception. But but that's always something that I get asked that quite a few times on investigations, and it's funny how the technology's changed so much. I know when I first came into the field, they were phasing out Polaroids. It was the big argument was on 35 millimeters, and of course, which shutter speed to use. Of course, everybody wanted 800 exposure, and oh, well, if you use the 400 exposure, then that's just not good enough.
Yeah.
And you remember those days where digital cameras were just coming on the scene, and they were frowned upon and shunned. And back in those days, if someone had told you that it would eventually be all digital, you would have thought they were crazy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny how everything has taken that turn.
And I will say this, and some listeners might get mad at me, but orbs are not ghosts.
Right.
They're dust, they're water vapor, they're bugs,
Mhm.
they're dander. And a lot of people say, well, I see faces in them. Okay, it's called
Mhm.
matrixing because
Mhm.
your mind is designed, it's like looking at a cloud and you see something in the cloud. Your brain says, hey, or pareidolia is another good word for it. Your brain will fill in blanks and
Absolutely.
make you see something that's there. That's the way your brain is supposed to operate. And the
Right.
digital camera is no different. A digital camera is actually made to do the same thing. It is supposed to put in stuff. Sometimes it's not there.
Right.
It's basically doing an educated guess, thinking, okay, well, this shade should be here, and this shadow should be here, and this should be here.
Right. No different than the results you get from an ink blot test or one of those.
Exactly.
Right. Or for that matter, an irregular pattern on, say, paneling on a wall or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely an ongoing debate, and luckily more people are starting to accept that now. But we still get quite a bit of that.
Well, there's a lot of them still when you try to bring it up to just, and as an empath medium, I know there's spirits there, but not everything is a spirit, and good Lord, everything is not a demon either.
Right. Right. Thank you.
And because I've dealt with so many pissed off spirits that will try to make people think that they're a demon because they know that's something that scares them.
Right.
And, you know, you can take it for what it's worth. I've done this for over 30 years, and I've asked so many spirits, especially ones that I trust. Like one of my spirits is my spirit guide. Her name is Janiwal. I've asked her more times than I can count
Hmm.
if there are demons, and she told me right off the bat there are none.
Right. And, you know, like we were discussing the other night, there's those certain criteria that is so prevalent among so many beliefs that if someone sees those characteristics and thinks it's a demon, if I want you out of my house, and I'm a spirit, then I'm going to do whatever I think is going to scare you the most to get you out of there.
Oh, you ain't lying.
And if I think that if I'm banging on the wall 3 times, if I'm doing, like A, B, C, D, and E off of this list to imitate what traditionally is thought of as a demonic haunting, to invoke fear, if I think that's going to get you out of there quicker, then that's what I'm going to do.
Exactly. And why do you think so many investigators get out EVPs every time? I couldn't tell you how many places we've been to and you got get out EVP, or leave me alone, or leave this place. Because most people, and this is one of my theories on that, is most people go in there and they try to provoke these spirits. If I went into your house as a human and tried to provoke you like you're provoking me, first thing you're going to do is you're going to either kick my ass,
right,
or you're going to tell me to get out. Or you're going to kick my ass, then tell me to get out. One of the two. Spirits are no different.
Right.
If you go into these places that you go into, and the first thing you say is, I'm not here to harm you or disrespect you, I'm only here to learn from you, you'll be surprised at the results you'll get.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's something that's why we tell people so often that, we see, like on TV, like ghost hunters, not ghost hunters, Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
You see Zach Bagans, he goes on there, which he's not as bad now as he was, but he would go on these places, and he would try to provoke everything, and you go in a place like that, and you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, and you know how he does it too? He'll provoke them, then he'll send one of the other two in there. He won't go in there himself.
Right.
I'm like, man, you're gonna be a man and you're gonna provoke somebody. You might as well go in and face like a man and deal with what's gonna happen.
Right.
But I said the old adage this forever: you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar every time.
Absolutely.
And you'd be surprised at the results you do just saying those simple words when you walk out. And make sure you thank the spirits when you leave, because it was an honor for you to get to communicate with them.
Absolutely. And that's something else that we do, is we emphasize when we talk to others about how our techniques. We always tell them, to be sure to show them respect, to make sure and keep in your mind that you're in their house.
Yep, exactly.
You're the one visiting them. Show them respect, and if they do communicate, if they do manifest, do whatever that you ask them to do, to thank them. Be sure that you communicate to them that you appreciate it, and be sincere about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you this, both of us being retired military, if you guys ever go into a place that has military people there, if you're not respectful to them, right, I have ways of coming to get you.
Right.
Just take that to heart. Because you ever disrespect a military person, and I ever see you do it, it might be the last thing you ever do.
Absolutely.
And I don't even have to do it myself. I've got ways. I've got enough spirits behind me. I have enough spiritual warriors behind me that will make sure your life's a living hell. So don't do that to soldiers, airmen, Marines, or the Navy. You treat them with ultimate respect, and that goes for every spirit, but especially the military ones, because they gave more than you'll ever know.
Right. That's one thing they say is you never piss off a vet, living or dead.
Nope, you don't. So, now, I will say this, though. You can get some spirits, you don't have to provoke them, but you can be stern with them. talk to them like a human being, like you would like anybody else you'd have to be stern with. But, let them know why you're being stern with it.
Right.
And still show them the respect that they deserve. Because a lot of times these spirits that are mad and pissed off, they're mad and pissed off for a reason. They don't have, like they do in Beetlejuice, they don't have a book that tells them everything they need to know about being a spirit.
Right. And like we were talking about just the other night, there's so many of them that are in denial about their death and don't even realize they're dead.
Exactly. And I've had spirits, and I'll give you a prime example down in Andersonville. It was a Confederate prison camp that the Confederates had for the Northern troops. And we caught two separate soldiers saying, "We're not dead." And the other one said, "We're not dead."
Right.
But Frank, I thank you for having me on, my friend.
Well, no problem. And it's been good to have you on. And I'll tell you what, before you go, is what kind of advice would you give to anyone that's listening? Because, of course, the show is about, our primary goals to help people that are interested in the paranormal, maybe investigating now, maybe thinking about investigating, someone that's thinking about coming into the field, or someone that's new in the field. What would your best advice to help them get started be?
Well, always try to find somebody else, find a team that's already established themselves. Go learn. Get with teams. If you're going to be a team that start off by yourself, get with other teams that have been around. Share knowledge.
Absolutely.
I mean, always share knowledge. Don't try to keep something that you know, because my grandpa said it best. He says, "You know something, I teach you. You know something, you teach me. Now we both know something new. We can go teach somebody else. Pass it on."
Absolutely. Well, I mean, think about this. Back years ago, like we were mentioning, we talked about the Warrens, John Eustaphis, some of those. At one point, they were all newbies too. And,
Yep.
Everybody starts off at one point, and that's the key to it, is this is an ever-changing science. It's fluid. The technology changes. What we know is always adding and growing every day. And if we're not sharing that knowledge with other teams, with other investigators, then we can never expect the field to go forward. So
Exactly.
it's our responsibility as investigators and as teams to help other teams, to help them grow and learn.
And one more thing I'll say, don't think because you started a team you're going to be on TV. That's few and far between.
Right.
Go and enjoy what you do. Enjoy helping people.
Exactly.
Enjoy your hobby, because this is what it is. It's a hobby. Now, some of us is a passion, but it's still a hobby. Enjoy it as a hobby.
Exactly.
And remember this, respect yourself and respect everyone else. Now, we can have disagreements, but there's one thing. I want everybody to stop all the daggum backstabbing, like we're in junior high school.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely.
And again, Frank, thanks for having me on. I hate to have to get off here, but I've got to go to work tonight. So I've enjoyed myself. And Frank, we will talk more, my friend.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to having you on again here before too long, and look forward to talking to you offline as well.
Anytime, Frank. You guys have a good evening, and thanks again for having me on.
All right, and you do the same, and to everybody that's tuned in, we certainly do appreciate you. So,
all right, later, y'all.
Okay, y'all have a good night, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Paranormalities and Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal team, brought to you by the Paranormal King Radio Network. We hope you enjoyed the show, and will tune in again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please be safe as you're out there, especially if you're investigating the paranormal. Take care, have a good night, and happy huntings. Thank you again for the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal.